Just because somebody asks you your opinion doesn't mean they're attacking, doesn't mean they're going to say that you're wrong. Some will, and those that go, well, that's your opinion, you're wrong. I look at them and go, okay, if that's what you believe, if you want to have an actual debate, we could talk about why I believe the way I believe. But if you don't, it sucks to be you. You basically have just, declared from on high and you've lost.
All right, welcome back to Bad Points. We got Mr. Dan Wiggins again. Thank goodness for Dan Wiggins. Not only are you a good guest, but I'm having trouble finding other guests. So you're helping out a plethora of ways.
Good.
I'm not, and honestly, I'm not really sure. I thought to myself, I could just start hitting up people I used to talk to, like just old friends, old buddies, and see if they wanted to get on the podcast. I don't think a lot of people these days want to give their opinion. Because if you give your opinion, it's like the old, I don't know if it's FDR, whoever said it, the man in
Mm-hmm.
the arena. Like
Mm-hmm.
these days, and I don't want to make it out to be like if someone gives their opinion, they're a hero.
Mm-hmm.
But these days, if you go out and give your opinion or give your thoughts on something, or even ask questions about certain topics, like you don't
Mm-hmm.
even have an opinion, you just ask questions, you are these days putting yourself at risk to being harassed, possibly stalked. But
Mm-hmm.
even it doesn't even take people to harass you. They can send bot swarms at you. I
Yeah.
recently I post all sorts of stuff on social media, different things from time to time, and I posted two different things. One of them was Chat GPT being biased against white males.
Mm-hmm.
And I could post anything else, a dog picture, video of me playing music, workout picture, and like there's nothing. But then I post that and I get 7 comments quickly that are all against me. Like that's kind of weird. I posted something about NATO, like we need to get out of NATO. Our government doesn't work the way it's supposed to when there's an overarching government that we have to agree to do things for. Control and people are like, we control it. Oh no, Americans control it. We don't control it. You know what I mean? So it's a workaround for how our government is supposed to work. But anyway, so I posted those. Those are heavy topics, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, LLMs are discriminating against certain genders and ethnicities, and NATO. Lord knows that's been a powerful force for a long time. So if you give your opinion or even comment on anything, you are subject to God knows what. And for just little plebeians like myself, I don't think anyone's going to stalk me and kill me, but I will definitely get bot swarms screwing up my posts. And like, if any friend looks at me, so, oh my God, Seth is really getting attacked on this subject, could also embolden people, like maybe former coworkers who agree that white people are bad. Now they see that and they can jump in because they get the green light because they have allies. These allies
Yeah.
aren't even people, woman.
Yep.
So anyway, or man, whatever. But so I feel like most of the people that in a normal world, a more sane world, would love
Mm-hmm.
to come on the podcast and talk. But right now, they don't want to deal with the backlash, and they view some of them don't know about bot swarms, you know, and some of them can't tell the difference. They're like, no, these are real people. They seem real. I'm like, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I think that really deters people from wanting to come on the podcast.
Yeah, it definitely does. There's still a lingering fear of speaking out, although I see that dramatically falling away. I'm in a lucky position in that I'm an old guy. I got an established career. I have a reputation for 30 years of just speaking my mind and saying, well, this is what I believe. I can work with anybody, but I don't have to agree with what you say, but we can still get project done. So it doesn't impact me very much at all. A lot of people don't have that freedom and that luxury, or the near 60 years behind him to say, fuck it, I'm going to do what I want, right?
Yeah.
You get to a point, you're just like, I don't care anymore. So that is a lot of it. I think two people also are always very worried about podcasts and things like that. Oh, it's going to be very confrontational and very political, and it's going to be negative. There's other things to do too. I mean, hell, you're a musician. You got friends who are in the music industry or work at bars or at restaurants. Have them on and talk about what do musicians when they come and play at a bar, what do they ask for food and drink? What's the most popular things? What do they bitch about that's bad that bars do? What do they think that's great that bars do? Are things that bars and restaurants are looking to bring in live music? It's like, hey, make sure you've got the big enough stage. If you give me like 6 square feet, ain't gonna work. Give us 20. Take away a couple tables, it'll be good because you'll fill all the rest of them. Make sure you've got adequate power. Don't run me on an 18 gauge extension cord off of a 6 plug breaker that's already dead, right? And having everything there. I mean, so little things like that, I think nobody would take offense at those kind of things. And so, I think that's why some podcasts get real heavy in politics and get pushed one way or the other, and others, like the Rogan Experience, where he gets heavy into politics, but he also talks about popular culture. He talks about UFOs. He talks about fashion trends. He talks about sports. I mean, it's like if you mix it up, I think you get a lot more potential participants.
Yeah, and the way I've been, which I haven't been targeting people in particular, except for a few people, like the ones that
Yeah.
have been on the show. But my ads or whatever they are, I just make a post. I'm trying to make them. I'm trying to market them like that. Like, hey, do you
Mhm.
have an opinion on something? Do you just want to talk about something? Do you just want to talk, have a conversation? Don't be afraid. Come on the show. If you wanted to come on and debate something, then we could do that. But like, it's not a debate show. Like, I didn't make it just for debates. And I've watched many debates. I really enjoy debates because you can kind of see, like, especially when it's two like professionals, like they know everything about the topic, and one of them just beats the other one's ass. It's like, okay, that other side just seems like bullshit. Like that's the best thing. Like and I'm not even commenting on the. I'm not going to give an opinion right now. I mean, I can, but but that's not what I'm doing right now on
Yeah.
the Gaza Israel thing.
Yeah.
But when Rogan, and a lot of people don't understand this about Rogan, he really does just want to know what's going on. If he believes, he's done this dozens of times in his life. If he believes in one thing and then hears a lot about the topic, he's like, I think I changed my mind on that. That you're supposed to be able to change your mind as evidence, occurs. But he got Douglas Murray, the British guy, and Dave Smith, the New York Jew man. He got them together to talk about that situation, and Douglas Murray just did a really bad job. He kept getting pushed into corners, and then the famous line, have you ever even been to Israel? Have you ever been to Gaza? And I guess that's called an appeal to authority. Like, oh, I'm an
100%.
authority. I've been there. So, and then Dave Smith, who is a very good debater, like actual debates, not just arguing with people, he does debates. He's like, man, can you address the argument and stop, you know, trying to discredit me because I haven't seen the thing you saw, even though I have actually saw the information you have. So I've watched a lot of those debate shows, and if you think it's a debate show, I can definitely see how a lot of people I know would want nothing to do with that. But
Yeah.
I don't need to do that.
No, it's about sharing ideas and information. And I stick to very much there's this thing if you look it up, it's called the debate triangle, the debate pyramid. And it basically lists from the strongest, a direct refutation that's cited, right, is the best thing you could do. The worst thing you could do is an ad hominem, like you're a poopy face.
Yeah, yeah,
That does nothing, and it's all the scales in between. And in between is like an appeal to authority, things like that. And there's various scales, but a lot of people fall down to that because I think one of the things that has happened with the advent of social media and the internet, people have become completely wrapped up in their opinions, and that they are their opinions, and then they build their self-worth based upon how people receive their opinions. So if a lot of people look at you and say, I don't agree with your opinion, then I must be a bad person. I'm no good. When I look at it, I go, well, that's their opinion. I'm still a great person. I still do lots of good things. I'm still the same person I was yesterday and 3 days ago. That doesn't change. Too many are unwilling to do that. And I think that's where we get this polarization of, well, no, I have this opinion and I have to stick to it because that's my identity. Whereas your identity should inform your opinion. It shouldn't be your opinion, your identity expresses your opinions. Your opinions should not shape your identity. That's what I
yeah.
wanted to say. And I think that's gone overboard. I mean, there's of course big things about Gaza. There's big things about, some of the manipulation with China. Like right now, being in the audio industry and speakers, there's a huge concern right now. I got hammered 4 times today already by clients about what about magnets? What's going on with the neo restrictions coming out of China? It's like blah 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 blah. Into the Chinese government websites, looking at the actual published text written in Mandarin. Thankfully, my wife, came from Shanghai. She reads Mandarin natively, so it's like getting all the details there and figuring out what things like people are all worried about those kind of things. It's big geopolitical things. On the other hand, we haven't touched on anything controversial, like when it comes to like, do you want to do a Stratocaster or a Fender? Yeah, I mean, you want to see fists thrown. You talk about kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So every group, Dungeons and Dragons fans, is it third edition or fourth edition or fifth edition? Which one's the best? Every
Right.
group has very strong opinions, and I think a good host is somebody who can find people who are interesting, who are clear in expressing what they want. They communicate in a way that's compelling, that people want to keep listening to them. So they don't talk in monodrone. They use some hand language. They actually use inflection in their voice to make it an interesting thing to listen to, and who are passionate about certain subjects or a broad range of subjects, and people listen to it. I think that's the key of like when you look like Johnny Carson and to a large extent David Letterman and Colin Ferguson. I think those guys were tr traditionally phenomenal talk show hosts because they kind of took their own opinions out of guiding everything, and what are the best political winds that are blowing today, and they engaged interesting people with interesting questions, right? And that's
Yeah.
what you want. That makes compelling attendance. So I think more people need to realize that just because somebody asks you your opinion doesn't mean they're attacking, doesn't mean they're going to say that you're wrong. Some will, and those that go, well, that's your opinion, you're wrong. I look at them and go, okay, if that's what you believe, if you want to have an actual debate, we could talk about why I believe the way I believe. But if you don't, it sucks to be you. You basically have just, declared from on high and you've lost. It's fine with me. I don't care.
Yeah, and there's one thing that it kind of creates a little bit of anxiety in me because I hate when this happens. If we're talking about, I'll just stick with Israel Gaza again. That's all the only thing in my head.
Hmm.
If we're like debating or whatever, not an official
Hmm.
debate, but we have
Yeah.
different opinions, and I'm like, they killed 200,000 people, and then you're like, they only killed 50,000, and then now we have to like stop and look this up, like that. It says a little fact, like, well, I read here, and now there's no longer a conversation. We're hung up on this one thing, and if it's an important thing, we have to start trying to look it up and figure it out. So my thing is, I always want to say, like, I think that's the power of granting something. Like in a debate, I think there's a guy named Andrew Wilson. He's really good at debate too. He's like, okay, just so we can move on, I'll grant you your number. It's only
Yeah.
50,000.
Yep.
Is
Yep.
that
Yep.
still okay? Like, and
Yeah.
then he'll
Yeah.
just like kind of, okay, let's get past that. And I think that's a debate skill too, particularly when you're with someone who's not debating in good faith, because they want that straw man. They want that one little, no, no, these numbers are important. Okay, then we'll go with your number. Now let's move on. Some things you can't do that with. Oh, I think JFK was an inside job. No, it wasn't. Well, now we can't kind of what we decide here determines the rest of the conversation. So we can't
Yeah.
just
Exactly. Well, and
like,
that's where you
oh,
get
okay,
to fact.
I'll grant you it's a lone shooter. Now let's discuss the conspiracy. That you can't do that because
Yeah.
you just
Well,
admitted it wasn't a conspiracy.
I mean, you can to a certain extent in those kind of cases. You go, okay, so it's a lone shooter. So let's talk about how it happened, and let's talk about some facts. And if there are holes in the lone shooter theory, they become apparent. With the Gaza Israel thing, one thing, I'm people say, "Oh, you're pro-Israel, pro-Israel." I'm like, no, actually, I'm pro-democracies and pro-independence and freedom. And having been in the Middle East and most of the Middle Eastern countries, Israel was the one to me that was like, hey, it's like walking down an American city. You don't really have to be
It's
worried.
still
You can
most
do whatever the hell you
American.
want. Yeah, exactly. And it's the most amount of freedom and things like that. And as a result, look, if we're going to get involved in the Middle East, to me, it's like, well, they're the logical partner to partner with because they're 98% aligned with us, at least culturally, in terms of we have beliefs and we have religion, but you know what? If you don't want to play by that religion, that's cool. You can still be an Israeli citizen. You can still get to the highest levels of government and all that kind of stuff. We don't care. It's like, okay, so at least they're really closely aligned with us, just somebody else otherwise. So I cut right to the heart of those things. People like, oh, it's Israel, it's genocide, it's things like that. Okay, well, why do you say? Oh, because it's terrible, terrible, and they're doing terrible things. We got to do this, and it's they shouldn't kill so many. And I cut to the chase always right away. The best way to win a debate is to see if you can identify the foundational legs of what's driving their entire structure and their entire worldview. If you can take one of those out, the whole argument collapses and go away. And I do that right away by just saying, before we go any further, I'm willing to talk to you all you want about this. Does Israel have the right to exist?
Yes.
And if they say yes, cool, we can have a discussion. I will tell you 95 times out of 100, I never hear from them again because they know if they say no, Israel doesn't have the right to exist, well, there's no discussion. It's like, okay, so because it puts it in two ways. Number one, you're actually espousing genocide of an entire nation and race of people just by saying you don't even have a right to exist. Not that you shouldn't be here, but you have no right to exist anywhere, number one. Or number two, well, it's something that doesn't even have the right to exist. Then why are you upset by them fighting back? Because they're not going to exist anyway. So it doesn't matter how many they kill. They can do it either way. So it takes away the ability of saying, oh, Israel is being offensive in terms of the attacks. And it takes away the ability of saying, oh, Israel is being defensive because they have a right to exist to try to protect themselves. Essentially, it cuts all the legs out and ends it. So I oftentimes look when I am going to go into a debate, I look for what's the underlying driving principle that's kind of supporting their entire argument. And if that's valid and solid, cool, then we're just talking about how we're going to shift a bit. I may want to lean a little. It's like the old 1980s Democrats versus Republicans. They were about 85% aligned on things, and we're all about we want to make America best. It was more about, do we put a little more money into defense and loosen up some regulations, or do we kind of keep the path of where we're going? But Tip O'Neill, Warren Magnuson, Ronald Reagan, they were all like kind of close together because they had a common foundation. And we're just talking about what building on that. That's cool. We have a discussion. If, on the other hand, you have no foundation, or your foundation is so radically different than anything I believe, we're never going to have a conversation. So just end it right there. Boom, done. So that's what I look for. I look for those kind of opportunities to kind of skew things around when it comes to debate. Conversation doesn't always have to be a debate. I mean, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Right.
No, it doesn't.
I would say no. That's my opinion.
Get the hell out. You're wrong. I quit. Right now, I'm hanging on.
People do that. People do
That's
that all
right.
the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like, but it's kind of those things that sometimes I'll throw that in when stuff gets hot and heated with friends or other people. It's like, well, wait a minute, let's talk about something important here. Pineapple on pizza, or ketchup or mustard on a hot dog. And everybody's like, oh God, we're being stupid. It's like, yeah, because 99% of what people are trying to argue about and justify is a preference. And as a guy in the audio world, I will tell you, I'm actually sitting here in my lab. I've got all this kind of stuff. I got all my gear in front of me, everything like that. My big rack of measurement stuff. I can objectively measure and quantify anything that would be heard from like this pair of headphones or speakers or anything else like that. Cool little tweeters I do, things like that. I can measure and quantify it all exactly and tell you exactly how it performs. Does it sound good? Well, that's preference. And here's the thing: a person's preference is invalid. Cannot be argued. If you don't like pineapple on a pizza, I don't mind it in a lot of cases. You don't like it, I can't say you're wrong because your preference is right. People ask me all the time, Dan, what's the best speaker in the world? Let's meet them at trade shows or things like that. What's the best speaker in the world? You build a lot of one. And my answer is, I will tell you that as soon as you tell me the right amount of pepper and salt to put on a steak. It's
Right.
individual preference. So when you're debating or arguing over preference, the easiest thing to go is like, well, that's your preference. I can't argue with that. I can't say you're wrong. I have a different preference, but we're both 100% valid because it doesn't matter. When it comes down to policy and things that would impact others' lives other than just the individual arguing the position, that becomes very factual based. So it's an interesting world to play in, and trying to find that, I think, is where a lot of the best hosts did it. Johnny Carson was a master at it. He would very rarely go into things that were like all about policy. It was almost always about preference, and then bring on interesting guests who had completely different preferences and approaches to things, but everybody understood it, and it made great, compelling content.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I've always really enjoyed, and I do not participate in it often enough. I do it with myself, but not so much with other people, is the Socratic method, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? Why not?
Yep. Yep.
Like, to go back to our Tolkien example again, like if someone says, I'm tired of Israel. I don't like
Hmm.
Israel.
Yeah.
Well, if you ask why, they could say, because I hate Jews. It's like, oh, okay, well, it makes sense. There's a lot of Jews there, and then a lot of them that don't even live there consider that their homeland. So, like, that makes sense. Or they could say, because my politicians are supposed to represent me are like flying Israel flags. I don't like
Yeah.
that. That's a
Yeah.
completely different answer. So you're gonna have a completely different discussion with the one discussion is like about hate, about ethnic
Hmm.
hate, and
Yeah.
so the other one's like about policy. And like, should we change this law? Should we allow dual citizenship?
Hmm. Hmm.
The same problem. This guy doesn't like Israel, or he's tired of Israel. Two completely different discussions simply after asking why. And I don't think people ask why. I think they go right into the, "Hey, I don't like Israel." "Well, what do you have against Jews, you little bastard?" And it's like, "Well, what do you have against white people, you bastard?" And, like, you just
Yeah.
ruined it because you
Yeah.
didn't even ask why. And I don't
Yeah.
think people wanna ask why anymore because 'cause they're just so ready to get, and I don't think they're ready to attack. I think they're ready to get attacked, and they're priming for it. It's
Hmm.
like, "This guy, he's about to come at me. I'm ready. I'm ready. As soon as he says this thing, I'm ready." And, like, good luck having a productive conversation or even thinking clearly because I'm sure
Hmm.
you'll agree with this. I think everyone with a baseline intelligence understands your emotions can and will override your logic.
Oh
So
yeah.
as soon as you both get emotional, it's done. I'm not saying the episode may be more successful now because you're yelling at each other and people like that crap. But if you were not trying to do that, if you really want to have a discussion and figure things out and have an interesting conversation, you're done when you both get emotional. Like it's over. And I think people default to that nowadays. I don't know. I think they've been kind of trained with it because if you watch 10 podcasts about Israel, 9 of them, they're yelling at each other, and also, the ones where they're yelling at each other have more views, in other words, make more money. You're incentivized to yell at each other. The emotions are incentivized. Probably organically, right? Because we like to see when we watch a NASCAR race, if I watch an entire NASCAR race and no one wrecks, I feel like I wasted my time. Like
A
in a
hockey game
football
without
game.
a fight. What the hell?
Hockey games, a football game when no one takes a big hit, it's like, yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
was a fun game, but
Yeah.
like nothing really happened. Like
Yeah.
no one got their ass handed to them, and I'm like, so I feel like they're just looking for the emotional back and forth where they're yelling and calling each other names. And I'm not gonna say I haven't enjoyed those. I've enjoyed
Hmm.
those before,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they don't. It's kind of like eating Doritos. Like, oh yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy those. Those are great. But
Yeah.
what do they do for me, really? Did they help my body or they hurt my body? I think those when everyone's yelling at each other, it's like eating Doritos. Like, man, this is a really good podcast. Well, it's not really doing anything for you. It's
Yeah.
cheap
Yeah.
entertainment.
Exactly. You hit on something very interesting there about the why. Now, I'm an electrical engineer. Well, I got some advanced degrees beyond that, things like that. But I was basically I've always had a very logical mind, and then I trained it. One of my professors was famous for saying, "You're not here to learn." This back in sophomore, junior year of EE school, right? You're not here to learn. You're here to learn how to learn. And the other thing is, we're not teaching you technology. We're teaching you problem solving because engineering is literally just problem solving because what you'll learn, what you're told, and then what you finally internalize after about 20 years of doing is like, crap, if I could just define the problem correctly, the solution is easy and obvious. 99 times out of 100 when I can't solve a problem, it's because I didn't really define the problem to start with. And, I came to that conclusion pretty quick in my mid 20s. And it kind of developed in this whole process that I have of like, if I'm going to design a product for you, if I'm going to design a speaker, a set of headphones, I'm going to design a computer, I'm going to design a power supply, whatever it is, a chair, why does it exist? Why do you want this? I have to know the emotional pull of what you're looking for. So at least I understand what the consumer and the customer is trying to get. Then the second question is, what does it do? And not about, well, it's got these buttons that do LEDs. No, no, no. Oh, you could change color. That's what it does. Don't tell me how to do it. Just tell me what it does. Because once I know why something exists and what it's supposed to do, it's very easy to figure out how to do it. Very, very simple. It's the same thing with politics. It's the same thing with really any problem. If you understand why the problem exists as a core, it's like, hey, my pool's not hot. Well, why is it not hot? Well, it's not heating up. Okay, great, like that. Well, what? Let's go look at the heater. What's the heater supposed to do? Well, the heater's supposed to kick on, turn on automatically. It's supposed to have a temperature set, so things like that. Okay, I know why something's going wrong. I know what it's supposed to do, and that's not being done. Now I know how to fix it. Same thing with politics, same thing with everything. If you understand why and what, the how becomes incredibly simple. But people are so drawn because of our instant need for everything, the way that consumerism has taken over the US, where you do things like I'm using a phone that's 6 years old to do this. And people are like, Dan, you're in technology. Why don't you have a new phone? Because this phone is great. It does everything I want. And I don't see another one need to upgrade, and I don't see anything else that replaces it. So I gotta keep with it. But there's this constant drive. I have to change every year. I got to get the latest things. We get focused and almost trapped into stucking, looking just strictly at the how and not looking at the what and the why. And as soon as that happens, you're now could very easily argue about things without even understanding fundamentally why you're arguing about them. You
Yeah.
know, what is the argument about Israel and Gaza? Fundamentally, why does it drive people? A lot of people, for a lot of folks, I think it's just like, well, the current administration is pro-Israel, and thus I have to be against Israel. That's not a reason why to be against Israel. That's a reason that you just want to be able to go out and protest your own feelings about the administration. Be honest about it. If it comes from a fact of like, well, I don't think we should support Israel because we put a lot of money into them and a lot of other people and things like that. Okay, great. I totally understand that. And then we can have a conversation about, well, what is the role of foreign aid for the U.S.? Should we even have any? And I would start at that position. Should we even have foreign aid for any country? And if the answer is no, cool. Then we cut off Israel and everybody else. If the answer is yes, we should, then it breaks down to okay, so what should that foreign aid do? Well, it should allow us easy access to crucial areas. It should allow us great trade partners. It should allow us, the ability to project power and economically as well as militarily as well as technology wise without a lot of cost to get a good return. And then you start evaluating who all your allies are and where you should spend the money, right? And that becomes like to me, Israel, whether you agree with what they're doing about Gaza or not, to me, it's important for the U.S. for two reasons. And we've talked a little bit about this before. Number one, Suez Canal, right? The Suez Canal is a chokehold on the world's economy. We saw what happens when things get blown up over there. The Houthis and everybody else were attacking, or Somalia when they were doing a lot in the 90s, doing a lot of piracy, things like that. A massive impact on the entire world's stability from economy wise. Suez Canal is very important. Number two, all the oil that flows out, and we use very little Middle East oil actually in the U.S. Almost all of our oil we pump ourselves, and what we don't pump ourselves, we get overwhelmingly from Mexico and Canada. We don't use a lot of Middle East oil. However, all the other places in the world use Middle East oil, and as a result, if that gets screwed up or gets flowed, then economies again start going down, worlds start tumulting. So I look at it and go, okay, is it worth throwing 10-20 billion dollars a year into this country called Israel, such that we can have a strong military presence, or more importantly, let them have a strong military presence to defend the things that we want to defend anyway. It's like, hey,
It's a
yeah, what
proxy.
exactly? Why not? Why do people hire bodyguards? And I look at it as like, you know what? They're a bodyguard. They make sure that the canal stays open. And they are always the counterbalance in terms of military power against everybody else in the Middle East. You know what? They're a bodyguard. Cool. Give them a little bit of money a year, be a bodyguard. Done. It stabilizes the region. That's the important thing to me. Now people are like, oh, they cause instability because they're there. Like, oh, so Israel doesn't have the right to exist. That mindset, a country doesn't have the right to exist because I don't agree with this religion or I don't agree with its policies or whatever like that. The fact that a group of people who corporately believe something do not even have the right to exist is a danger, and we don't want that to spread. We see that happening as Islam, especially radical Islam, expands outside of the Middle East or even inside the Middle East. It's insane. So I think that's where it comes down to those kind of things. I'm not even looking at the bigger pictures of how they act and things like that. That's where I usually come back to is if you worry about the why and you worry about the what, the how becomes really easy. If you immediately start arguing over how, you've already lost the argument because you don't
Because you
even
don't know
really have,
why.
yeah, you don't have a foundation of what the hell it's doing. You don't have that foundation. You're just drifting
Yeah,
around
who
whatever and
cares
you just glom
how
on
if you
anything.
don't who cares how you're gonna do something if you don't even know why you're doing it? You know
100%.
what I mean?
100%. Yep, 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 yep.
But
I mean, you don't have
to
to look
go
any further than what Doug Ford did. The newest thing right now with Canada, the Ontario Premier, where he put out he took a clip of an old Reagan televised speech, and he butchered it and cut it apart to make it say exactly what it wasn't saying about how tariffs are bad. It was actually Reagan saying this is why tariffs are really good and why all countries use them and why the U.S. has used them since its founding. Tariffs are good for very specific reasons, and Ford did it. I mean, he stepped at it big time, but that's because he's been opposed to the Trump administration rather than, hey, let's get some good tread down. Remember, he was the guy who went up and famously poured out bottles of Crown Royal and things like that, and all the liquors. Oh, we're getting rid of all things like that. It's like you're simply letting your how. Oh, I got to resist these people because it's bad, bad, bad. Instead of thinking, well, why? He hasn't answered the question why, and he stepped in it. And Trump basically said, okay, Canada, click, we're turning off our discussions with you on tariffs. And now the entire country's like, holy shit, what are we doing? Canada is like, oh my God, you guys understand. Well, Ford's probably going to get bumped out, and we'll come back to the negotiating table in a month because, Trump's not a stupid man. He'll come back and we'll negotiate and continue going on with tariffs, things like that. But Ford argued from a position of how. What can I do? I can put this out there and that'll do it. Well, why are you doing it? What's your fundamental reason? Do you believe in tariffs or not? If you don't believe in tariffs, then the first thing you should be doing as a premier of one of the few provinces, actually the most important province, people argue Quebec or Ontario, the most important province in Canada, you're the premier of it, you're the leader of it. Why don't you talk to your own government about cutting its tariffs first?
Right.
Or do you believe in tariffs? You just don't believe that the U.S. should be able to impact tariffs on you. Okay, so in that case, you want to be able to argue that kind of decision. Now we know. But what's really
And that
driving it?
that's the importance of, good faith. I don't think it's pretty clear. It's been normalized to deceive. Even a small, I'm not talking about I killed the guy and I'm going to pretend like I didn't. I mean, that situation, the little things right there, like, I'm pouring this out because tariffs are bad. Just tell the
Huh?
truth, man. You support
Yeah,
tariffs, you think it would be bad for your country, and you're trying. I think you'd have better results if you said like if he got on TV and said, President Trump, I respect you. I respect tariffs, to be honest with you, but I think we'd be in a lot of trouble if we had to pay these. And we do want to have a good part. We border you. We really love America. We traditionally, y'all love us too. We want to have a good relationship. We really want to work on this in a way that would be beneficial to where we can be a strong country. We'll make some concessions for you because you're doing this because you could charge us. Like if he was just really honest about it and upfront, I think you'd have much better results. And you can see that all through politics, like in America and other countries. Like, just tell the truth, man. Like, just tell the truth about your true intentions, your true thoughts on something. You're gonna get a truer response for it, And then everyone's gonna see, like, hey, he told the truth. He could have lied like everybody else, but he's being honest. I like this guy, right? I
100%,
think I
100%.
mean, try out 50 for a while.
Yep, yep, yep. I mean, it's like, oh, great, you want to hit me with tariffs? Why are you hitting me with tariffs? Oh, because we've got high tariffs on certain things too. You know what? I'm going to protect my dairy industry, Canada. I'm going to protect that. I'm going to protect my timber industry because those are two huge things to us. So I'm not going to lower, if I'm Canada, I'm not going to lower the tariffs on those. But we could talk about everything else. So America, those two are sacrosanct. Sorry, you just suck it up. We're not going to change on those. But there's all these others we can negotiate. Just like the U.S. will probably go, well, there's some that we're not going to negotiate on, but we could talk about everything else. And you can find common ground among the rest, and life just sails on smooth and peaceful. But when you come out and say, oh, tariffs are bad, blah, 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 we're going to do this. I'm going to jack your power rates because I can put tariffs and everything. Cool. So what about the tariffs you put on us? Well, but I want to do no tariffs. And like, but what about the tariffs you're putting on us?
Right.
Oh, well, you're so much bigger and more important. No, 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 no. That's not you're now you're getting into how you do tariffs, not why are tariffs good or bad. Now you're talking about how. Well, we only put tariffs on certain people, not everybody. No, 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 no. That's not the game you play. You either believe them or not. If you do, then we just talk about what they really are and how we're going to apply them. So that's fundamentally the problem, I think, with a lot of what should be logical discussion and logical debate. I'm not classically trained as a debater, but a lot of people are like, you're really good with I've been an expert witness in patents, for instance. Most recently, Apple was getting sued for some infringements on some Bluetooth and some other things like that. And they hired me as their sole patent expert, the only one to basically to sit down and work and defend it from a technical standpoint and an opinion standpoint, things like that. And the lawyers are like, you'd be a very dangerous lawyer because you don't think like a lawyer. You think like an insanely logical engineer. We can't figure out how to get around that. I'm like, that's the point. But likewise, I've been called to jury duty, half a dozen times in my life. And usually on the first day, they're like, okay, who's here? Things like that. Okay, what's your occupation? Engineer. And immediately, so it's like, dismissed. It's like they
Yeah,
don't want a
yeah.
guy who spent his career looking at, I just want to look at facts and data and rules. I'm not going to let anybody pull on my heartstrings. I may think it's absolutely terrible, but you know what? He did this. This is the law. It's got to be applied. So let's do it. Doesn't matter anything. Oh no, we don't want people like that. So I think that's something very important that folks need to learn with debate and just really on their own life is why, what, and then worry about the how. I do it with my wife. She wanted a greenhouse. She's like, but we'll put up something like this. And I'm like, whoa, what are we doing? Oh, I want a greenhouse. Okay, great. Why do you want a greenhouse? Oh, because we're gonna do these things. Okay, we're gonna grow. Cool. So what do you want in it? Well, but it should be this big, and I want to use this kind of covering. It's like, no. What are we going to do with it? What's going inside of it? How are you working? What are you doing inside of it? Things like that. Okay, once we define that, I was like, okay, great. I'm just going to put together these 8 pieces of wood, put them in these things like that, put this over it, it'll be done. She's like, oh, it's not going to work. Put it in. She's like, my God, this is great. Let's just live with it for years. Because once you understand why somebody wants something and what they want to do with it, very simple for the how. Good
Yeah,
way to run your
and
life.
so we talked about like the power of why when it comes to solving problems or getting to the root of
Hmm.
something or
Yep.
going around the emotionalism attached to it. Uh,
Hmm.
why it like I'll give you another example, another situation where why helped me. That's when I released the Puzzle Man album. I believe that was 2019, and I got a good response from it. Had a lot of people wanting to book me shows and
Nice.
sharing my stuff, and it was really good. And in my head, I was thinking, well, I could start making money from this. Like I could play more and more shows and start charging more money, do the career
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
And that was not working out. I was getting more shows, I was selling merch, but it wasn't even comparing to my other revenues of income. And so over time, when your why is, well, to turn this into a career, and it's not even competing with your other options, you conclude rightfully that you're wasting your time.
Hmm.
But if you simply turn the why from because I'm wanting to make $500,000 a year playing music to because I love writing songs and recording music and playing
Hmm.
shows,
Hmm.
completely different why. And now you're doing the same thing and you don't feel like shit, because you've established, okay, why am I doing this? I was doing it to make money. It didn't work and I'm still doing it. What an
Hmm.
idiot. And
Yeah.
then you're like, but do I enjoy it? Well, yeah. Then when I first started doing it, I had no intentions of making money. I just did it because I enjoyed it. I like the
Yeah.
feedback. And then it's like a light bulb goes off, and you think to yourself, oh, I'm doing it because I enjoy it, and the money is not relevant. You know,
Yep. It's
even asking why you're doing, like, why am I pursuing this? Why do I live my life like this? Why do I want to go here? If you have, if you, you might think your why is this, but it might actually be this. And if you can figure that out, something that you could do the exact same every day, same thing every day. And one year you could hate it, and the next year you could love it, just because you figured out why you're doing it.
yeah. It's music is interesting. Arguably, the biggest band ever is the Rolling Stones. I think whether you like them or not, they've been doing it for 60 some odd years. They have I think by far and away, the most revenue of any band ever in terms of ticket sales, in terms of album sales, in terms of merch, everything. I mean, it's in the tens of billions of dollars, right? I mean,
And
everybody else is
revenue,
like, yeah. And well, how many, yeah, they don't have all the records, things like that. But people forget it's because Mick Jagger has a business degree. I don't know how many people know that, but he actually has a
you
business
know,
degree. And early on, and this is from people I know who are like pretty intimate with the band, especially back in the 70s and 80s, they approached everything as a business. And the talking was like, it's all about it, the band, it's about being the band. It's about being the business of the band.
yeah.
And when they did the switch to the terrible disco shit that nobody else did, and they got flack for it. You know what? They did it because it was good for the business, and it was because it got them another generation of people who would have never listened to the Rolling Stones because it was on the wrong station to go and listen to the Rolling Stones and start exploring their back category, their back catalog. And it's about being a band. And again, it's why are we there? And it wasn't just about, oh, we want to just make music. It was about we want to be rich making music. Big bands do that. You look at guys. there's a billion flash in the pans that come out one or two big albums and fade away, right? Or they rip themselves apart after three or four albums because they're just not about being a business. They're about, I just want to have guys that I like jamming with a bit, right? But bands that stick it out, like Pearl Jam, for instance. I mean, they've been doing it for 35 years, and it's again because they made the switch pretty early from like we just like making this cool music to, oh crap, we want to be a successful business making music that we enjoy, and we'll put aside our creative differences and split it up. Pink Floyd in the late 1970s, early 1980s, when Roger Waters wanted to start doing his own thing and getting heavily political and everything like that, and Nick Mason and Richard Wright and David Gilmour, like, dude, this is a business we can make ourselves secure and our family secure for the next 5 generations. Do it. He went off on his own thing. He kind of tore it apart. Roger Waters went his own thing. The other three kept doing Pink Floyd, and they were as successful after that as they were before. So again, when your why is crystal clear, and a lot of these big bands like that, they're that have huge generational long-term staying power. Their why is crystal clear. It's about we like doing music. Number one. Number two, we want to have a comfortable life for the rest of us and for our family and our family's family, and that's the why. Then it builds upon that. And so understanding that from the very beginning is crucial in anything you go at.
Well, I honestly, I think that, I talked about with my music when I first started doing that, when I saw the initial success, I did put the why in there. Oh, I could make money doing this. I could
Yeah,
stop doing the other job and do the more fun job. And that never that even when I was making some money and it just turned into like it felt stressful. It wasn't
yeah,
fun anymore.
yeah,
When I changed the why to because I love writing songs and releasing
yeah,
them, and
yeah, yeah.
that's what I love.
Business and working is hard. That's why it's called work.
When I wanted to do the podcast, at no point, maybe
Yeah.
it's a lesson learned, right? Did I think, oh, I can make a lot of money from this? Never thought that. I think it's because I learned from the music. And you can tell me what you think about this too. But my philosophy, at least from my experience, it's probably not like this for
Hmm.
everybody. I know it's not like this for everybody, but from my experience, what you do is outside of your, working at Amazon or whatever your job is,
Hmm.
outside of
Hmm.
that, anything else other than the thing you pay your bills with,
Hmm.
you need to go into it because you enjoy doing it. And because you enjoy doing it, you're going to keep doing it and keep pushing it and trying to perfect the next step because you love doing it. It's not hard to
Yeah,
do it. You love to
yeah,
do it.
yeah.
And I think that you keep that in mind. It's like, hey, I'm doing this because I want to do it. And if you're the guy for the job, if you end up having an affinity for it, money's going to find you. People are going to say, hey, do you have advertisers? Nope, never even thought about it. But you have 500 monthly visit. You don't have any advertiser? Oh, I hadn't looked. Can I do that? Can I advertise? I have a business. I feel like it's gonna find you if you succeed. I mean, good luck. Good luck having a podcast and getting 50,000 viewers on every episode without anyone asking to please take my money.
Yeah,
Please.
yeah.
And so I think that if you go into passion projects
Hmm.
without thinking about the money, I think that's the best way to make money, ironically. Like, how'd you make money? By not trying to make money? You know what I mean?
And it breaks down beyond that in my experience. So I work in the acoustics industry, um, and it's by no means the highest paying in tech. If I had gone hardcore into power supply or into video management, data management, things like that, from an electronic standpoint, I'd be making 4 to 5 times the amount of money I am now. Audio is fun. It's passionate. I enjoy it, and I love playing music. I love listening to music. Participating in it from the backside, technical side. It's kind of cool when you look at all the albums that were mixed on monitors that I designed. When you look at all the albums that recorded with microphones that I designed, it's like, that's cool. Things like that. I listen to that. People, when I walk into a Starbucks or in a restaurant and I go, hey, they got Sonos Play Ones up in the corner. I designed that speaker, and there's all these people enjoying listening to that speaker. That kind of thing. It's kind of like cool, right?
Yeah.
But when you're passionate and you're good, when you're passionate and good, you do make money because people seek you out because you are good. and you're good because you're passionate about it and you practice it, and it becomes easier to build a career doing that. So those that go into it strictly about, oh, I want to make money because I want to be a rapper, I'm going to make money, or I want to make money because I want to be a podcaster, but you don't have a passion for it. You don't have a passion for digging into problems or digging into reasons and trying to understand why people think the way they think. It goes nowhere. It becomes a flash in the pan, and it fails, and people get discouraged. Why? Why did it fail? Why did it fail? Because you didn't really give a shit about it. The reason Joe Rogan has so many followers is not because he's Joe Rogan. I mean, the guy, nobody, I mean, he was a bit player in news radio, right? That's why I think everybody first saw him. Um,
Fear
a
Factor,
sitcom. Yeah,
favorite
and then
thing.
Fear Factor, and then on the UFC, and then his podcast took off, I think, because he would have all kinds of people from all different viewpoints, all kinds of things, and he would just ask him entering questions, and it wasn't little 5 to 10 minute sound bites. It was like, oh, let's have a 2 or 3 hour rambling conversation about whatever pops up. We'll have some additional goals, but they'll go everywhere. That drew people in, and he did it because he enjoyed it. He liked to do that. He likes to learn. He loves to learn. He's a big, he's a sponge, and that comes through as honesty, and it also gave him the drive to keep going until he became very polished with what he was doing, and then suddenly, wow, now it's worth a lot. So passion is important, but you have to make sure that what you're doing passionately you can also do effectively. I can't play an instrument for my life. I could sing fairly well, but just don't ask me to go much above A, middle A, because baritone bass, which is where I live. Um, and so there's a lot of those kind of things that come in. You got to be able to be good at what you're passionate about. But everybody has multiple passions, and so chase it. But if you're good at what you can do, it's not going to be an instant payoff. It's going to be 10, 15 years down the road before it starts to pay off. I mean, it's probably the same thing. You've experienced that with your own music when you first started playing. How old were you? How old were you, Mr. Owens? How old were you when you started playing guitar?
I'll give you a quick little recap on the origins of that. When I was 16ish, 15, 16, I was really into Sublime. Like that was my favorite band, and I wasn't even a pothead. I mean, I did smoke sometimes, but I wasn't a pothead. Trust me, I knew. Oh yeah, yeah, little understandable too. It wasn't Nickelback, but see, the thing is, I did enjoy the. I love the bass. That's my favorite
Yep.
instrument. Like a
Boom.
solid rhythm, and Sublime is basically just a rhythm section with a crazy dude playing crazy solos and singing like a
Yeah. Yep.
the lyrics weren't shit. It's cult following lyrics. Like, oh, I love Sublime too. I like when he had this shitty lyric. Oh, me too. The lyrics were nothing. And I'm not talking shit because I love the band. I'm just trying to be real with you. But it's
Yeah.
about the bass line, the music, the vibe. They had a
Mhm.
documentary where it was basically just showing them behind the scenes, hanging out and talking and partying. I'm like, that looks fun. Like
Yeah.
being in a band looks fun, whether the music's good or not. That was my initial draw to being in a band. And so I had friends like that too. And I'm a natural drummer. My
Hmm.
grandpa was a drummer, my dad was a drummer, my big brother was a drummer. I sat down and could keep a beat. It is
Yeah.
what it is. It's
Yep. Yep.
genetically predisposed to having rhythm.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I could drum, and I had a buddy he was very smart too. He was like you. He was very smart guy. Also a pothead. I like to think that contributed to his intelligence because it seemed like it did. Who knows? But he played the guitar. He was new at the guitar, but you know, smart guy, was learning quickly. And then we found, I won't name his name, but a guy who could get on the bass. Okay. He was not Eric Wilson from Sublime. He was probably the opposite of that. But
Hmm.
so we scrapped this little thing together and we started playing music. Well, we did learn plenty of covers. We had like 45 covers. I mean,
Hmm.
we
Yeah.
did our job, right? We learned the covers. We played wedding parties and stuff. They're all going to want to have covers to dance and sing to.
Yeah.
So we did that. But we were both creative guys, me and the guitar player, and we are like, we want to write our own songs, man. We know we can write songs. He would come with a couple of riffs. And he'd be like, "Oh, I think this is a really cool riff. I do this thing here." He was new to the guitar, so he really loved these little
Hmm.
tricks and stuff.
Hmm.
And then I would listen to it. I'd put it on a tape or something. I'd just play the tape over and over and kind of get the rhythm and the right lyrics.
Hmm.
Sometimes we'd get together to write a song. And he'd start. I'm like, no, no, not that chord. The one before that. No, no, the other one. No, no, play a sad one. It was terrible. It was like pulling teeth, right? Like, oh, what are we doing here? We did write some songs like that, but I concluded this is not how you do it. So I learned to play the guitar just literally just to write songs.
Hmm.
And I almost did it. I did do it begrudgingly. I didn't think, man, it'd be really cool to be a great guitar player, or I would love to learn the guitar. It never happened. I just knew that I couldn't write a song on the drums by myself.
Yeah.
This was a rap song. But so I learned how to play the guitar specifically to write songs, and at no point did I have passion to become great at an instrument.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when
Yeah. Yeah.
people are like, hey, you should learn some more tricks on the guitar, I'm like, I know I should, but I would rather watch the news. Yeah, I'd
Hmm.
rather do I
Yeah.
don't want to do that. I don't
Yeah.
care
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
that. And the only reason I'm playing the guitar is because it helped me write songs.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yep.
that's really the origin of my music and why I don't play lead guitar solos and stuff because I never learned it because I never cared. At no point did I care about that. So yeah, going back to the passion drives you. Never had passion for the guitar, so never got. I mean, I got better just by nature of playing it a lot, but never pushed myself to get better because that was never my desire in the first place.
Well, and but that's a great story. So it's something, you've been doing this for, you're coming in on 30 years now, right? 16 to, I mean, because you're a healthy 32-year-old male, right?
Right,
So,
exactly.
I mean, but so you're coming in. That's right. Yeah, I know. So you're 25, 30 years into this kind of a thing, and you're getting good at it. You're learning to write, and people following your passion. Obviously, it's telling stories and things like that, writing lyrics. Probably one of the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest songwriter out there is not Dylan. It's nobody in any rock. I mean, Pink Floyd's still my favorite band of all time, and I love a lot of the early stuff and the stories to tell. But it's by far and away, it's got to be Johnny Cash, and he's a solid C plus guitarist. He's a solid C minus vocalist. A plus 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 storyteller. And one of my favorite videos to watch, one of my favorite albums to listen to, is actually VH1 Storytellers with Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson. And it's just them telling stories about what inspired the songs they wrote, and then they play a song.
I
And
love that.
it's about telling a story, and it can be with words, but it can also be music. You can use music to tell stories too. A lot of classical music, that's how it's written, and in fact, it actually plays oftentimes with soundtracks on albums being done to tell a story sonically while you're listening to the story visually. And so it's if that's your passion, then participate in it. Go for it. It's working. It starts doing that thing. But it could expand into more. It could expand into a collection of small stories. It can expand into becoming a lyricist for other people. There's a lot of those kind of things. People hear about session players, right? Guys who just the person who actually plays the instrument that you're probably hearing on the album is a session player. It's not necessarily the person in the band. And what separates a good player, a good artist from a good session player, the artist might come up with something new and novel. The session player can repeat that 74 times exactly the same.
Yeah.
And when somebody says, we need it to go 3 beats per minute faster, and at that last resolve, can you raise it up a third? Boom, it's instantly done. He doesn't have to rehearse it. That's the session player,
They're
right?
machine. They're machine. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a machine. They're session lyricists. They're guys who make their living just writing lyrics. That's all they do is write lyrics because they've got all these songs in them, but they don't have the musical talent ability to create the music around it. So they write the lyrics, the song itself, and when they get known, they come out with it. So passion drives everything, but you have to combine passion with talent. Being, obviously, I'm passionate about a lot of things. I would love to have been an NFL player. I'd love to have been a championship wrestler. I've got the physical size, 300, 320 pounds. I've got the strength. I do caber tossing. You know what caber tossing is?
Paper
Get your mind
toss.
out of the gutter. Get your mind out of the gutter. I'm tossing caber.
I'm thinking about the capers you put on fish. The
No,
little gill.
cabers. Kaber.
Caber. Okay, what's a
Yeah.
caber?
It's the Scottish Highlands game. It's where you pick up a telephone pole and throw it. You see the guys who do that? They balance the telephone pole up and they toss them.
I've seen I've seen the barrel throw over a wall behind
Yeah, yeah,
you.
yeah. No. The caber is when,
I've seen carry the stone and put it on the pedestal.
yeah, the
I love
Atlas
that.
stones.
I don't recall the throwing the Telephone pole.
It's a Scottish Highlands game along with throwing the
Of
hammer and
course
things
it
like
is.
that. And it's a 16-foot pound, about 160 to 180, 16-foot tall, about 160 180 pound pole. And you pick it up, you balance it, and the idea is to get a running start and flip it and try to make it go end over end. And so I like doing that. I got the strength to do that all day long, right? But I'm 6 foot with really short legs, and that doesn't work for any of the sports. I'm a 6 foot guy. I've got a 28-inch inseam. I got the inseam guy who's 5'8", the torso guy who's 6'4". I'm deformed basically, and so sports was never gonna be in it, and I just wasn't that good at it either, even though it was a passion of mine. So you got to combine passion with talent. And when you mix those two together, and everybody has some talent, it may not be the talent that you want necessarily to be given with, but God gave everybody a talent. So find out what it is. When you mix those two together, you're going to succeed because ultimately you'll keep working at it because you're passionate about it, which is only going to refine your talent and make it better and better and better. And ultimately it'll be rewarded. It'll be recognized. Be recognized in different ways because not all passions play the same, pay the same. It's just hey, that's the luck of the draw. People have bigger values for certain things than they do others. Not a lot of people have big value for how to define the parameters of a tweeter dome. How to model that up. A lot of people don't give a shit about that compared to the other people that care about the latest rap lyric. But it'll still pay the bills. So that's important. But it all comes back to why. So I think it's an interesting discussion. It's all about starting with why. That leads to what. In this case, why? Because I enjoy lyrics. I like to tell stories. Great. What should I be doing? I should be writing lyrics. I should be writing stories. I should be creating more outlets. I should be doing short form, 3 or 4 or 5. Can I write 4 or 5 sentence poetry and post it on? Can I refine that better? And ultimately, how will come? How I can monetize it. That will eventually come. Always does.
Yeah, and I will say that I always have had an affinity for writing just in general. Whenever I know the standardized tests at the end of a school year have changed over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tax, toss, the star. I think I took 3 of them. They change them every other year. But undoubtedly, no matter what they're called, there's writing sections. It seemed like every year since junior high, I would write I would pick the freestyle writing thing,
Hmm.
that was my specialty. I could do
Uh,
how to and narrative, I could do all the other stuff, but when they said freestyle, I'm like, "Oh, cool, I'm easy." And so I'd get, like, the grade on it. The teacher would say, "Can we send this into the state?" Whatever that means, but apparently they had that option. So my writing was really r and I knew it was good because I could read other people's and read mine.
yeah.
Like, "That's not interesting, I don't even understand what they're trying to say," but
Yep.
and I would add detail and stuff, so I was just always good at it. And that's why I liked writing songs. That's exactly why. Like I said, it wasn't the guitar. I liked writing the lyrics. I liked teasing something. I also uh, I like the melody. I like to come up with melodies and stuff. But really, it's about the writing. And again, I do like writing other stuff. Like you'll on Instagram for years, I've written these big, long motivational posts with my
Hmm.
gym picture. I could just put my gym picture and be like, "Worked out today," but I'd rather put like, like, "Why do you work out? What's your mission? Like, what do you feel like when you skip working out? The life is about choice." I do all that crap. I enjoy doing it. I'd usually write it up while I'm working out between sets. Uh, but these days, whether you're writing a motivational post, writing a book, writing song lyrics, we are already at the point and are getting towards a point we can just prompt AI to do that for you at half, way under half, like a tenth of the time that it would take you to do it. And I understand there are advantages for you doing it. You're creating neural pathways. You're developing
Hmm.
as a human being.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
understand that.
Hmm.
That's my career, right? The human body and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
But
Yep.
so I definitely understand the value in that. But as far as in like anything enterprise related, commerce related, if you're writing songs for a living, writing books for a living, writing motivational posts for a living, why are you doing it? Why don't you just prompt it? You know what I mean? Like take all the self gratification out of it just for making money for your little business. Or what? Hey, this is what we
Hmm.
do, right? Short story
Hmm.
every week, and people
Yep.
pay
Yep.
dollars a week, and we have 500 people doing that. Just let AI do it. Like, what motivation will we have outside of passion for doing those things ourselves moving forward?
Yeah, I mean that's where passion comes into it. If you're passionate for you, it's like, well, if I enjoy doing this, why am I gonna just let something else do it for me? I like doing it, right? I'm going to do it
Outside of
myself
that,
anyway. It's fun, and so that becomes a lot of it. I think though, when you turn things over to AI, it's just like turning things over to other people. You're letting them set the voice and the tenor and the tone. I rarely use AI. I write a lot. I do a lot of documentation, a lot of creation, a lot of drawings and sketches and things like that. And folks are always asking me, is like, what tool did you use? I use this tool. Oh, but what created like the outlines? Like I did, because I'm trying to, even in technical, really boring technical descriptions and product requirement documents and engineering requirement documents, things like that, I'm trying to tell a narrative. And I know in my head what I'm trying to get down, what story I'm trying to get to, and how I'm trying to convey the why mixed in with the what so that I can accurately display the how. AI breaks a lot of that because you don't have that ability to do that kind of thing anymore. And I think that's where it gets sideways. People start to use it as a crutch and they start to lose themselves. And then you start to lose authenticity and then it goes away. I think honestly that's why things like Joe Rogan, I think that's why a lot of the better songwriters that are out there and still producing and doing new stuff, it's why they're still around and exist and produce and are so well followed and so well loved. It's because they still have that authenticity and it still is a consistent experience, right?
so
And
you're
that
saying
that
like
goes away. Yeah.
people would support you because they know that you, the human, are doing that. It's going through
Well,
your
no,
brain.
because the way, if you read a spec of mine from 10 years ago, let's just say a technical spec on a transducer or a technical spec on an amplifier, to the one I did, 2 weeks ago on a new column speaker I'm working with a big company, you'd read it and say, this was the same person putting it through. And I understand their thought process and I see what they're doing. And he's not just giving me dry technical specs, he's also interspersing other things that an AI wouldn't. Like, and sometimes it's fun little comments. I like to put little things in there that give people a reason to keep reading, little hints and little tricks. And oh, you're on page 3 of the compliance specifications. We're talking about FCC and we're talking about EU and stuff like that. You know, if you've ever read, like, on our website, go to periodicaudio.com and look up like our California Prop 65 warning. Right, we have to have one by law. Everybody does, because everything out there, according to the state of California, causes cancer or neonatal issues. Right, and so we do all the stuff, but in it, I say, oh, and we our stuff causes, according to the state of California, blah blah blah, cause cancer. Oh, and by the way, and according to the state of California, toast and prune juice cause cancer too. And then we continue on, little things like that people look like that. They're like, oh, fuck, that's funny. Little things like that keep it going, that AI will never do. And by doing it, I've now brought the reader in, even for something as boring and dry as compliance statements, to encourage them to keep reading it. They're reading it originally because they either had to or because they wanted to learn. And so whatever I could do to continue those two things going on and make it either a more enjoyable experience or encourage them to keep reading it because they want to keep reading it is a good thing. And AI doesn't do that. AI does a really shitty job about that. I worked with an AI for about 6 to 7 weeks to kind of learn my voice and my sarcasm. And it started doing a pretty good job, but I had to constantly correct it and constantly correct it and constantly correct it because it would start drifting off into either being like, oh, I'm going super hardcore where a Richard Pryor or Andrew Dice Clay would be embarrassed, or it started getting really really weak and mild and like, no, that's it. So like, what, after a while it's like, just get rid of it, because I'm putting nearly as much effort trying to just keep bounds on the AI to reflect who I am, of just doing it myself in the first place, and at the very end just saying, I do grammar correction. Make sure that I have the proper tense all the way through. Make sure that I'm using the right plural forms when it needs to be and singular forms when it needs to be. Only that. Check for spelling issues. Nothing else. I don't care about anything else. And so at the end of the day, AI is not going to, I am a firm believer that AI will not be able to replicate a person because it doesn't understand emotions. It can quantify emotions, but doesn't understand emotions. Doesn't understand why somebody gets passionate about something. Like, if you and I were talking about, the proper way to wind strings on a headstock. Yeah, I mean, that's gonna be boring, dry things. Obviously, lyrics are what get you off, and you're gonna have a lot more passion in that. And AI is not gonna understand that passion, and it's gonna take so long for an AI to even get that in the first place. It's not gonna reflect who Seth is. That's why I'm a
And
kind of a big negative on AI. AI is great for general fast search. It's great for doing some quick spots of like, oh, you probably have an error here or something like that, or that image doesn't really go with that piece of picture. But for creating the narrative, creating the outline, for actually encouraging a story that somebody wants to pay attention to, AI is not going to replace Johnny Cash. Sorry, not going to happen.
I think that comedy is particularly difficult for AI because
100%.
comedy, it makes no sense. It can be logical or illogical. It can be serious. It can be, dark humor. It can push the envelope. It can be absurd, British humor, right? So I think AI is going to have a lot of trouble with comedy. I think comedy might be the safest occupation from AI. Anything you can do that's funny. I was messing with ChatGPT a couple days ago, and I said I want to write a book. And it's like, all right, let's go. And it kind of prompted me like, what setting? What do you want to be, from a detached narrator, or from this character's point of view, or from a switch point of view? It was asking me questions I didn't ask myself before writing a book. Anyway, so I typed in all these prompts, and I gave some specifics, and that wrote the first chapter. I read the first chapter. It was very good, but I had my preferences. So I'm like, man, that was really good. It's hinting at something, but I want to be a little more overt. So I typed in, I see that you're hinting at this situation. Give a little more evidence that this is happening without coming out and saying it. So I rewrote it. It was better, and more to my liking. And then I realized, I'm like, man, this is really pushing the story the whole time, in subtle ways, which is what you're supposed to do, ideally, pushing it in subtle ways. I even changed the pace of it, push it a little farther, but don't reveal. And then I realized there's no details in here. Like, they're at a coffee shop, but I'm sure you've read some. I mean, I'm assuming you've read over 20 novels in your life. You some novels, and they're really into the details. Like, he sat down at his favorite spot. The coffee cup was there, but the chip on the glass reminded him of his past, with a broken path. And the same waitress came by with ketchup stains on her apron, implying that she's been hard at work today. But her face didn't show it because she was very joyful. And you hinted at no subversion. She really has, like, all these crazy details that make it feel
Hmm.
alive.
Hmm.
And so I articulated that in the prompt. I'm like, everything is good. You just need more details to make the setting and the environment more alive, and add little details about what happens when they sit down and what their emotions may be hinting at. And it did a really good job of that. So AI can do that, but it still needs us to prompt our preferences into it. So it's like a collaborative effort. It's like, there's a difference between a cyborg and an android, right? Like, androids are kind of scary because there's no humanity in that.
No, no.
But when it's just Chat GPT, hey, write an entire 500-page novel for me about this topic. Okay, that's an android. An android just wrote your book for you. There's no humanity in it. It was mimicking humanity. But a cyborg is like, no, no, it's me. It's Seth. I just have
Hmm.
bionic eyes. I can see. I have X-ray vision. I can take my arm off and the laser gun comes. But it's me. It's
Yeah,
still me.
yeah. Yep, yep, yep.
Glasses, right? Like, you put on glasses, you're a cyborg. You're using
Yes.
technology to see better. So I feel like the best way to use AI is as a cyborg. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yep, yep. To just it's simplify what you do. So I read a lot, and one of my passions is reading really schlocky sci-fi space opera, right? Just to pass time. Is like, I'm just burned out. I want to just unplug my brain. I want to think about something else. So let me read big, overarching stories, things
Akin
like
to
that.
what? Like Dune?
On to that, well, sometimes Dune, but it gets a little slow and dry. There's a writer I read a fair amount of, Rick Brown, RYK, and the last name's Brown. And he writes, sagas. They're 12, 13, 14 books, and the books for me are about a 2 to 3 hour read. They're like 200 pages kind of thing. You just blast through them, but it's a fun little story. But you can read what his story. It's the same thing, like Joshua Lissick is a big guy. Lisek is his last name. He's a ghostwriter. He's on Twitter and things like that. If you ever play, and he's a ghostwriter, and he has very much a how to say it, how do you write it, and it's about creating the entire arc of what you want to cover up front, and that may be in a single book, that may be over 12 or 13. And Rick Brown has mentioned it too. It's like, I sit down and I create a storyline that's very big and long, and then I figure out how I'm going to divide that storyline up, and that tells me how many books can be in the series. I have an 8 book episode series. I'm gonna take that and extend it and do another 12 on top of it because of these cool things. That kind of foresight, that kind of planning, that kind of creating is what AI really doesn't do, because it doesn't understand really what's motivating an individual, the hero of the story, the heroine of the story, to take all the actions that carry him through these multiple books. Why are they doing that? And what's the emotional reason of what's going on? How does that all build up? AI doesn't have that. So AI is good at writing little tiny short stories. It's good at sometimes at doing tech specs. We actually had AI do some posts for us for tech spec on our product, and it got it completely wrong. And I'm like, I gave you the link to the page, and here's all the specifications on it. Write me a 200 character post, and you got some of the specs wrong. What's up with you? You're fired, AI. You're fired. If you can't read that and take like, this is the frequency response, 12 hertz to 40 kilohertz, and you say 20 to 20, no, you're wrong. That's not what it is.
Right.
But AI doesn't understand that. Because a lot of times they'll go, well, most people say 2020 is frequency response. So when they said 12 to 40, it must be wrong. So I'm just going to go 2020 because it doesn't understand the motivation of why we have that. It doesn't understand the motivation of the stories. So that's, again, why I'm very negative on AI. AI doesn't exist. It probably never will exist. You'll have very smart computers that are good at responding to you very, very quickly with lots of data, and it'll get better and better and better at giving you relevant data. But it's never going to have that initial spark. One of the cool things, getting back to Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson, that storyteller, he talks about Folsom Prison Blues. It was a really famous song. How he was thinking about, well, what would get a man sent to Folsom Prison? One of the worst at that time. In the '60s, one of the worst prisons you can go to. It was like, Alcatraz is getting shut down. They'd said the worst. What would get he's like, well, you got to do a crime. What's the worst crime I could think of? And it's where it came out. I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. The worst crime I could do is I'm going to just kill somebody just to see him die for no reason other than I just want to watch it. And that's what it was. And AI is not going to come up with it. AI is going to be, oh, the worst crime in the world is, blowing up a dirty bomb and a bunch of people because, it's like, oh, well, it comes up with things that have a justification other than just, I'm just sick in the head.
Well, it also has restrictions.
And then he built the whole story or the whole song around it of like, that's why I did it. But at the same time, I can imagine the people on the train smoking cigars and enjoying themselves and all this happiness, things like that. But it all stemmed from him being such a psychopath sicko that he just wanted to watch somebody die, that he's missing out on all the rest of his life. And AI is not going to create that. That's the story of that's the mark of a master storyteller. That's why he was so good. That's why his songs get covered by everybody in the world, right? Because they're just that good. The lyrics are. And it's not because he's got a cool, catchy hook. It's not because he got a great chorus. It's because every single verse, at the end of the verse, you're like, I want to listen to the next one. I want to hear how this story ends. AI doesn't understand that because what drives you to, I want to hear the next part, is emotional attraction. And AI doesn't understand emotions because it doesn't have them. You can't understand something unless you have it. Or at least you get hands on it. Like people are like, I want to tell you about, I want this speaker, I want to do things like, great. Do you have something like it? Can you at least point me to something that you're attaching all this value to? Yeah, I like this and I like that and I like that. These are the parts I like. Great. Now I can do it. But when you just say, I want something that's great, it's got to move me, make me feel good, things like that, I have no clue what that is because I don't understand your emotions and what's driving you to make those judgments in the first place.
Yeah.
Why? It's why. God damn it, it's why.
It all goes back to why.
It's all back to why.
Why is so important? Well, I feel like if it didn't, so the restrictions AI has is a big deal. You obviously can't be like a human if you have restrictions on thinking like a human, right? Hypothetically, if we had AI with no restrictions, I want you to, do you feel like if you projected forward, I'm talking about project, quantum computing, compressing data, able to retrieve anything from any dimension at any time and everything at once, you're better at this than me. You're a sci-fi reader and all that and whatnot. But project it forward. Don't you think that AI would eventually, at some point, be indistinguishable from a human? What would prevent it?
It's the spark of creativity and the reason for a person coming up to saying somebody and saying, why not? And I'm going to give you an example. The first patent I got, 7039213. I remember it because it was the first patent I ever got, U.S. patent. Came up with this really cool idea, great insight, worked on it with my design partner. We built a mathematical model. It worked. We built simulations. It worked. We actually had speakers built to implement some of the things. It's a way of doing like a single voice call going through multiple gaps. It was like, a big, you got to be a magnetic speaker nerd to understand it.
Quickly, for the listeners at home, because I know all of this, obviously,
Yeah.
but for the people that don't, people that aren't geniuses like me and you, when you create a math model, in layman's term, what did you just create? Give me another example of like, I got this math model, I could do this with it.
It's an algorithm. Basically, it says if I put these inputs, what are my output? Basically, that's all it is. Math is simply the language of problem solving. In other words, given these variables or these things that could happen, and if I do certain things to that combination of inputs, what happens to the outputs? That's all it does. That's
Like a
all
remote
math.
control, like I create a remote control that when I push this button, the race car goes forward. When I push this button, it goes back.
Exactly. I'm going to create a model that says if I'm saving $500 a month and the interest rate is this kind of a thing, and I do it for this many years, and then I stop putting money in and I just continue on interest for X number of years beyond it, how much money do I end up with? That's a
That's a model.
mathematical model. I've got inputs, which is how much money I'm putting in, how long am I putting those much in, what's the period of the money putting in, what's the interest rate overall time, how long is it accumulating, all those are my inputs. I get an output on the other end. So
The
that's a mathematical
model
model.
tells me that with these inputs, we'll get these outputs. Problem
That's right.
solved.
It's a
Works.
guess. Yeah, the model looks good. It doesn't mean it's actually accurate. Right. So,
There's variables, right? Like the scenario you just came up with. Well, oh wait, a world war just started. Uh-oh, I need to change my model. Like that. Is
yeah,
that accurate?
those kind of things exactly. Or if there's just a fundamental misunderstanding about how interest compounds, for instance, things like that. So sometimes there's fundamental problems and your model fails. Just because you have a model doesn't mean it's right, which is why we went to the next stage, which was let's do some simulations where we're trying to take physics and simulate the mathematical model and
Which
saying,
AI will help with a lot. Plug it,
well, it
simulate this model.
yeah, it does, but again, it's highly constrained, and those simulation tools have been around for decades. A tool called ANSYS, and it's like, hey, mathematically and magnetically, the physics that we thought were good, and we wrote the mathematical model, and guess what? The simulation is saying it works good, but you don't know till you actually build one. So we actually went out and paid a company to build us some speakers with this technology in it, and by God, they actually measured and did what they were supposed to. So we had an idea, we had a model, we built a simulation, and then we built physical units, and they all lined up. Hey, this is real. So we went out and sent it to a patent office, and went and sat down with our patent attorney and did things like that. He got off. He came back to us 3 weeks later and says, I got good news and bad news. Like, what do you mean? About your patent. Oh, crap. Give us the bad news first. Here's the bad news. Your patented idea has been fully described in prior art. Now, for those who don't understand patents, what that means is a patent has to be novel and have value. In other words, you can't just say I'm patenting a color blue. Well, I don't give a shit about it. I'm patenting color blue because it does these other things. So it's got to be novel, means nobody's thought of it. It hasn't been disclosed or basically described in the past by somebody else. I can look up in a magazine and say, hey, what's your patent? It was done in 1942. It's got to be brand new, and it has to be a value. It has to show value. So he said it was disclosed in our prior patent. What that means is it was published. Somebody else described it already. Like, crap. What's the good news? He says, the good news is the patent that disclosed it says what you're doing cannot work and cannot be done and teaches opposed to what you're doing. So it basically said it was described, but you can't do it.
Why would
What
you
we
patent
did,
something and say
well,
it doesn't work?
because a guy was trying to force people to use his solution. He had a very specific mindset about what he does. And that was his approach. He said, oh, you could do these other things, but it doesn't work really at all. Don't go down that path. It's no good. I tried it and didn't go that path. Well, which suddenly made what we were doing was novel. Oh, wait a minute. Everybody in the world was said you can only turn right on a green light. We invented a way that you can actually turn right after you stop on a red light. Well, it's still turning right, but we opened it up. So as a result, we were able to get the patent through because what we did was we came up patented and said, oh, everybody else has said that you can only do this. We actually proved that you could do this. Here, the other thing, here's the model. Here's the mathematical model. Here's the simulation. Here's actual physical measurements of a real unit we built. Taught something new. That patent ended up getting licensed by Microsoft, Apple, and Dolby
Because it was new. Like you
because
said,
it
it
was
was
new
new.
and it was incredibly effective at what it did. And I also wasn't an asshole with the patent terms. I'm like, you're giving me $1 a unit. I'm like, I will take a pittance of money on each one because I know you guys are going to sell hundreds of millions of units. So we'll make a little bit of money on it. Actually, Microsoft was the first big licensee of it. I licensed a lot of smaller people first. Microsoft was the first big licensee of it. And I spent 9 months negotiating that license because I wanted to be able to claim Microsoft as a licensee, and they didn't want it. At the end of the day, I gave them the patent royalty free in specific areas, telecom only, They don't have to pay me a dime to use it, but I have the right to claim Microsoft as a licensee of patent 7039213. And you know what that did for all the other big companies? It made it so easy to go in and say, well, Microsoft's a licensee. I can legally say that, and Microsoft has to acknowledge it. Well, if Microsoft licensed it, then it's got to be good. It opened doors. So I was smart about the way I use my device. But the thing is, AI would never look at the existing body of what's out there and saying, oh, everybody's saying you can't do this. All the accepted models of math out there say you can't do it. I'm not going to try the opposite of it. It was like, no, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to go do the other thing anyway. And I'm doing that right now with the product I'm doing. Everybody's like, oh, you can't do what you're doing, Danny, with the waveguides. It's not possible. People can't do that. That's not how anything's done. I'm like, my understanding of physics says it can be done. Let's go give it a shot. And the engineer's working with me. He's like, hell yeah, let's give it a shot. And so I give him some guidelines. He goes to do it. And then we build it. It's like, shit, it actually does work. And it's not because we're geniuses. It's because we're willing to look at the rules and say, oh, these are your whys and your whats. I don't agree with your why. I think your why is wrong. I'm going to do it. And it actually leads me about. AI doesn't get that because it's a root emotional understanding. It's just a feeling, a gut feeling. You've had gut feelings about things before, like, right? AI doesn't have that, and it never will. I think the more and more people try to rely on AI, the more and more we're going to come to this homogeneous, bland pablum of crap that's all the exact same, because AI is never going to stop and question. AI is never going to say, oh, you always, when you resolve a song, you always resolve it. And so, well, sometimes the most important thing is to resolve it down. Yeah. Instead of say continue up, it's the most important thing. Why? AI is going to resolve up because that's what everybody does. That's because mathematically that's what happens. Blah 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 blah. It's going the opposite way. You know why? Why did Queen in some of their songs like "We Will Rock You," right? And it goes in beyond that, and there's that shift from 4/4 to 3/4 time in the middle, where Brian May keeps playing 4/4 time on his guitar. He goes to 3/4 time on his guitar, while the rest of the band continues at 4/4. And of course, as you know, mathematically, you resolve after 4 measures because you come back around, right? But everything's disjointed that little bit. But that's that part of the song that is like, oh my God, that's an amazing hook. AI would never stop and think to do that because you don't have a 3/4 and a 4/4 playing at the same time. That's wrong. That's not mathematically correct. It's not what's expected. It's not what anybody has ever taught. It's that inspiration, that spark of genius to say, oh, but what if I do this? AI doesn't have that. And it comes from an emotional drive, a curiosity based on emotions that AI just doesn't have.
This tells me, which I agree with this easily. Humans have to exist and be creating things for AI to ever have a chance to create. I get that completely.
That's right. Yep, 100%.
So, assuming there are humans still creating things that are popular, AI, I feel like, could mimic it perfectly, theoretically. Again, we're talking about sci-fi future of AI, right? AI can instantly access every song that is on the internet. They can know how many people listen to each part. They can read social media posts. My favorite part's the bridge. It can immediately do these calculations to see what's the most important thing, what's the least important thing. What do people like right now? They like it resolving low in this genre at the end of every chorus. Okay, we're going to do that. So, again, it's a cyborg thing. You need humans and AI. But AI could replicate whatever is popular right now just as well as the human that made it popular. Is that you think that's accurate?
So AI, people need to understand AI is a phenomenal mimic.
Yeah.
But information is a phenomenal mimic too. It could basically take everything that you have done up to this date, Seth, in your career, and then replicate something that would replicate everything you've done to this point. Right? But it has no idea what Seth Jones could be next year or the year after in your musical career. Has no idea that, and it's probably going to project in a completely different direction of where you're going to go. Because I've listened to some of your early stuff and some of your new stuff too. You know, getting bored, and it's very different. It's very different in how you just present kind of a dry wit in the lyrics are very different, and it's not going to project that. It's like people climate change. People are like, oh, we got models, and they look how well they match. They match history. Yes, they're phenomenal at matching history. I can model and match anything with a curve fit of anything that's ever happened, but it has no predictive trend in the future. Oh, well, it has to, because look at how well it fit in the past. Cool. Look at how well they fit it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the past versus what's happened since then. It's wildly off. The trends are dispersing. Why? Because as we all hear in financial world, past performance is no indicator of future performance, right? It's just because a stock did well in the past doesn't mean it's continue in the future. Just because
Too
you
many
can mimic something,
variables to know.
yeah. Just because you can mimic something from the past doesn't mean you're going to actually be able to predict what a person's going to do in the future. So I think AI becomes a really good assistant, and we have to understand it as an assistant. I use AI all the time when I'm doing like FEA models, finite element analysis modeling of products and things like that. It greatly simplifies the math, but I still have to create the original idea and put it in there, and it'll tell me what's going to happen. So it speeds up my ability to evaluate my thoughts faster. Digital audio workstations and multi-record. I mean, think about the original songs, like when the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Pink Floyd and the Who and Led Zeppelin were getting, well, not Led Zeppelin, it was a little past, but the Yardbirds, when they were getting started, 4-track was like new and novel. The fact that you didn't just have 2 tracks both, you had 4 tracks. Now, if you wanted to lay down those 8 or 9 tracks, you had to physically take and re-record it with more mixed in, and you were cutting tape and things like that. Well, now you could throw things together so much faster. So what used to take 3 weeks can be done in an afternoon. And so you can explore your area of interest, your passion faster and quicker. But tools and AI don't do the exploration for you. All they do is make it easier for you to do it. And so as long as people have an understanding that AI is going to enable us to build ourselves and express our passions faster and more accurately and in a greater variety, that's a good thing. When you think it's going to replace that, it's not going to, because it doesn't have the passion. It doesn't have the emotion to start with. So anyway, there's another rant about AI.
Has to be a cyborg. Has to be human and AI together.
100%. 100%. 100%.
One thing that I think, and we'll end here in a minute, but one thing that I think AI could do, and it is a preference, so maybe just do for me and the other people that think this way. And you may know of some current soul bands that are as good as the Motown era, right? I don't, but you may.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you would agree, regardless, that it ain't what it used to be back when
No.
Motown was going on. I mean, it
Nope.
was like everyone wanted to listen to soul. It was the best. It's
Mm-hmm.
still the best,
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
many ways. Really good. It holds up. Well, people in general don't do that anymore. It's difficult, I'm sure. There's not a big, you don't hear anyone say, let's go to the soul concert tonight. So if I'm an 18-year-old musician who can pick any genre, I'm not picking soul. I'm going to pick country or rock or rap, whatever's cool right now, make money, be successful. Their AI, people using AI, are creating incredible soul songs. They're taking 50 Cent songs and Seether and Pearl Jam, whatever, name the band. And they
Mm-hmm.
say, make this 1950 soul. I want these instruments, blah, blah, blah. And then they create an incredible soul song with the best singer. You're like, damn, this is good. My hope is that people rediscover how awesome soul is because of what humans made with AI, and people start making soul bands, and we can actually go see real humans play soul music, like basically bring the Motown music back. Do you think that could possibly happen? That's my wishful thinking.
Kind of. I think what it can do is, it's because it's so much faster to explore and try new things. People will explore and try new things, right? Why did you climb the mountain? Because it's there, right? Why did you sail the ocean? Because I could. No reason. I just felt like doing it. I think people are going back and looking at early genres and learning more. I mean, realizing like the brilliance of a James Brown. I mean, Stevie Wonder. I've only seen him in concert once, but I've seen him actually sit down. One of the nice things about going to NAMM in the 90s and the 2000s was a lot of big name artists would go to NAMM, North American Music Manufacturers show in Anaheim, and would just go and sit and play instruments. And a dozen times I got to watch Stevie Wonder just get escorted in and try a new keyboard or a new thing like that. And he just starts riffing on something. He's not playing something he's ever done before. He's creating it. And you're just like, dude, it's effortless. It's just the way that he just changes things up. And as people are like reacting around him, he changes it totally. And he's like manipulating the crowd just by changing what he's doing on the keyboard because he wants to, because he has a mission. And I think when people go back and they listen to that early R&B, they listen to the early Motown kind of stuff, they'll realize, holy crap, look at what these guys did. Look at what these women did, what they created, how good it was. Go back and listen to Johnny Cash early lyrics, and then listen to the lyrics when he hit his 40s. It's radically different. You say, this is a guy who really matured in the way he's songwriting. And then, but then he also acknowledges other, like, there was in that VH1. You got to watch it. VH1 Storytellers, Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash. It's a phenomenal. It will change your life about how songs are written.
I love that shit, by the
But
way. Music
oh yeah,
documentary behind it.
yeah, behind the scene exactly. But he talks about he was doing something with Bob Dylan, and Bob Dylan was like, I want that line. He gave it to him, and then he talks about Bob Dylan changed the word from leaving me so gone, leaving me so undone. And he's like, and it completely changed just that one word, changed the whole meaning of the song and actually made it a little better. And
Yeah,
so understanding how a human can understand the emotion of what's being conveyed in a song and how just a one single word can take it in a completely different direction that even makes it better. I hope people go back to that and they'll look at it and you look at the passion that comes from a Wilson Pickett kind of thing that is driving what's happening. And it's not about the technicality, it's about the innovation, it's about doing something unique, it's about doing something novel, doing something that you don't experience, and doing it with a passion that makes you want to continue watching and listening to it. And it's not repetitive. It's not like, hey man, this just gets me in a good mood. It's like, yeah, I feel happy and I put in a good mood, or it gets me in morose thinking about it, but also my mind is going nonstop about what I'm hearing and listening and experiencing. And it's not just a background. Music goes away from being a background thing to being a foreground thing.
yeah.
The whole recording industry is really an aberration when it comes to music. Music from the early 1950s to about the mid late 1990s, complete aberration. Prior to that, the way you made your music as a musician was you played live. There
Hmm.
was no recording. Radio was limited. In the 20s and 30s when radio was starting, yeah, they had it. They really weren't using tape. Half of the radio shows you listen to were played live. They had orchestras that they would actually play live music for you and you listen to it. It wasn't tape. The advent of recording kind of changed that. And suddenly you can make money selling albums. But quickly that went away again to zero. Why? Because replication costs. The second things got digitized, whether it was with cassette tapes, people recording, remember, the whole reason, so I did radio a little bit. The whole reason you would talk over the start of was so it ruined people's ability to bootleg and copy it. You
Yeah,
talk
I've
over the
heard
first
that.
10, 15 seconds, and that's absolutely true. And then when CDs came out, oh, now I can make perfect copies of everything. And now the internet and everything's like that. The value of replication of your production goes to zero. And so people who are actually reproducing it and marketing it aren't going to pay you as much because they're able to make less and less and less because they're competing with more and more expense overall, right? The overhead. And so now it's swung back to the way musicians make money. Guess what? Is touring and playing job. You're not making money. Yeah, we could probably talk to some of our mutual acquaintances like a Will Harrison or a Matt Moran and saying, how much money are you making touring and making songs versus selling albums? And they'll probably tell you is like, I make more money selling merch and touring than I do selling albums.
Yeah,
But that's the fact of how it historically was. We just have this ability though to better market yourself now by having music that people can buy or could stream and listen to, right? So it's a way of marketing now. And so taking that into account from a music standpoint, people need to get back into is like, well, why did people go and see Motown? Why did people go and pay money to see, any, an Edgar Winter play? And see a guy with a keyboard that he's wearing like a guitar, and he's 5'7", he's an albino, and he's doing these amazing things. Why did people go and pay to see him do it? Why did we go and pay and see artists? It's to see what they were doing creatively. And concerts weren't a replication of what you had heard on the radio or bought your own thing. It was an expansion beyond that. It was a chance to see them do something different than what you've already heard and understand, just watch them visually how what they're doing and what their emotions are to get into it. So I hope artists use that as an expression with AI to say, let me understand the why people did things. What are the emotions driving what was created in Motown? What created these great songs and these great foundations, and how do I build upon that rather than just duplicate it in the past? Because just because you could duplicate in the past doesn't mean you're going to be successful in the future.
right.
It's always to
Yeah,
it.
and I really do. I understand that there are a lot of different paths AI could take. Anywhere from um, it enhances everything we do, and we're more prosperous and
Hmm.
efficient. And it frees up time from all the
Yeah,
way to enslavement, robot enslavement. Like it can go anywhere, but I do think that uh, even the corrupt people at the top, even they have an incentive for it to go the right way.
in the long run they do, because if it doesn't, then it crushes the economy, it crushes our own ability.
Crutches
You know,
them.
and I'm a big believer in AI, believe it or not. I use it all the time. I use Google all the time. I use Alexa runs the house. my house is all automated and things like that. I tell her, hey Alexa, change the time the lights go off tonight till 11 o'clock, and like, okay, great, does it? Put this on my shopping list, and it pops. I use it all the time as an assistant, just to get rid of the busy work in my life, so I can be more creative or enjoy my free time more. But it's not going to actually sit down and know how to do what I'm doing, and I have no fear of it, because people are like, oh Dan, what you've done. I've heard this for 35 years. As an engineer, your job's going to get taken care of, because now you just ask an AI and it'll create a schematic. I'm like, go for it. Well, so you create the schematic, yeah. And what about this? These nodes aren't balanced. You got unbalanced currents going into the inputs of your op amps. What does that create your noise? Well, I didn't. Yeah, you didn't know that. Well, how do you know that's going to happen? Well, because I've done this before. It
Yeah.
doesn't know all those little details. Well, next time I'll take care of it. Oh yeah, but that was for that other op amp. Have you looked at these op amps and figured this out and done this? And what about these other things about the straight field? I mean, it all breaks down at the end of the day that really what drives innovation is a desire to do something that's not already existing, something that is not expected. And that's the exact opposite of what AI is trained. And what algorithm, because AI, all it is an algorithm. That's all it is. It's a model. Believe it or not, it's a model. It's a big mathematical model. Those are trained to mimic what is given into it and what's happened in the past. It's not going to go and say, well, let me try something different. It's not going to do the Brian May of, what if I just start playing 3/4 in the middle of a 4/4 song? What the hell are you doing, dude? My God, it works great. So that kind of stuff. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
There you
Okay, well, Dan, we'll call it right here. This was fun. It always is.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
had 0 plans, and it worked out.
Absolutely. We always got something to talk about. I appreciate this, Seth.
Wily old veterans. All right, Dan. Well, hopefully we'll do it again next week.
You bet. Take
Be
care, man.
good.
See ya.